Hi, and welcome to the Women Empower Active. I'm Amy Moritz, and let me start off by apologizing for being an hour late for our live broadcast tonight. We had some technical difficulties, but we're here, and if you're watching us on tape, then it doesn't matter that we were late, so we're just glad that you stopped by to say hi. And for those of you who are joining us, we're so glad that you're here. Again, Women Empower Active is a project through UR Sportswear to help women reach their fitness goals by sharing information, discussing obstacles that we all have that snag us in our pursuit of active, healthy lifestyles and of our various goals. And we're going to talk a lot about goals today with our guests. I'm Amy Moritz, and just some housekeeping things. I'm your moderator. You can follow along on Twitter at UR Sportswear. And please tweet any of your questions using the hashtag StrongWomen. So any questions you have, hashtag StrongWomen on Twitter, and we'll get to as many as we can. And today, very happy to have with us and excited that we got our difficulties out of the way so we can talk with Alissa McKaig, elite marathon runner, distance runner. And so welcome, first of all, to Women Power Active. We're going to talk a lot about
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here.
I'm Amy Moritz. It's great to have you here. And I wanted to start by talking a little bit about your breakthrough year that you had in 2011, which is where some of our viewers may know you from. You had a great year in 2011, culminated in finishing with 8th at the Olympic Marathon Trials. So what were some of the things that were most special to you about that year and that whole season of training for you?
I think 2011 is still one of my, I guess, favorite years from running. I guess the biggest thing was just making the World Cross Country Championships that year. I will definitely never forget that experience, just getting to go to Punta Umbria, Spain, and represent the United States. It was the first time I'd gotten to do that, and I'll never forget the feeling of standing on the line in a USA uniform and looking around and seeing all these amazing women that I'd seen on television or, in big races around the world, and getting to race against them was pretty incredible. So that was probably my favorite. And then, just having PRs on the track and having it just keep going and snowball was pretty incredible.
That's great, and we all know that in anything, and in distance running specifically, success doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't just happen, in that year. So what were the keys for you, both mentally and physically, to be able to have that kind of year?
I think mentally the biggest thing was changing the way I saw myself. I think I was capable of running fast for a while. I'd been doing the work and putting in all the time and energy required, but I hadn't changed the way that I viewed myself. In order to run a little bit faster, you have to see yourself as, if you're a 20-minute 5K girl and you want to run 18 minutes, you have to think of yourself as an 18-minute 5K girl. And I had to think of myself as a, 15, 20, 5K person and a 32-minute 10K girl, and change the way that I thought of what I was capable of. So I think that was kind of the biggest thing mentally. And then physically, you just have to be consistent. And I'd been being consistent for years, and I had to keep believing that those miles and miles and miles would pay off. And I think that was, just the biggest thing was just plugging away and keeping on doing it, and that's what you got to do.
When you mentioned that mentally you needed to change the way you saw yourself, were there things that you did did you visualize things? Did you just have positive self-talk with yourself? How did you go about doing that?
I think going into races, I had to change the way I talked to myself, for sure. I think in seeing the way, in changing the way I saw myself, I had to change the way I had seen races too. I had always been, even from the time I started running in high school, I had plenty of success in high school that you would think would have changed the way I approached races, but it didn't. I was always scared. I'd been scared of racing forever. I loved working out. I loved getting out there and seeing what I could do on the track and on the road in workouts, but when it got to races, I was just scared. And so letting myself stand on the line and be excited about the potential outcome rather than being scared of potential mistakes. I think that was the biggest thing, was just looking forward to good results rather than the things that I would probably do wrong in a race, which you're going to make mistakes in a race, but I got to be excited about seeing where I would end up rather than scared of where I would end up.
That's fantastic. I think that's key no matter what, if you're towing the line with USA across your chest or lining up for for your hometown 5K. It's that same sort of mentality.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you can apply it in anything, in life too. I think that's the greatest thing about running, is that you can take it from the road to your work life or your personal life. The goals you set for yourself in running are things that you can set for yourself in life too. So you got to change the way you think of yourself across the board.
And I just want to remind anyone that's watching live that you can tweet your questions using the hashtag #StrongWomen. And so, Alissa, I wanted to ask you, after all that success that you had in 2011 and leading up into 2012, I know that you had a setback then with an injury. Can you tell us, a little bit about what happened then as far as your career goes?
Yeah, it kind of started in 2013. I raced Boston Marathon, but had some gastrointestinal issues, and that went pretty terribly. And then I got a stress fracture before my next marathon at the end of 2013. And then 2014, I had some issues that stemmed from pain in my toes that then changed my form, and I had pain in my knees. And it was this whole long process of going to various doctors and PTs and trying to figure out what in the heck was going on, and staying positive in that was really not easy. And I think that's where surrounding yourself with people who know what you're trying to do, and who will hold you accountable to what you're trying to do when you're down and wanting to stop and just not enjoying things and depressed, having people come around you and support you and remind you of what you've done in the past and remind you of what you're trying to do in the future. I think that's so very important, and honestly, it's the only way I kept going. And even, the end of 2014, I was still struggling to get back. I remember one of my friends is a college coach at Western Kentucky, and I went down there to hang out with her and try and get in a new environment and maybe get excited about running again. And I struggled to run 7-minute pace with her college girls. And she, this spring when I was training really well and telling her some of the workout, she was like, "Remember when you were struggling to run 7-minute pace, Alissa, on easy runs?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And she was like, "You, at least through all of this, what you've shown yourself is that you can go from where you feel pretty much as low as you possibly could, and in 3 to 6 months you can be back to where you know you should be." And I will say that was very encouraging, even in training for LA and then getting sick immediately before it and not getting to race that. It's like remembering that I did come back from a lot, and I did struggle through a lot, and I got to a point where I think I would have raced really well. I didn't get to do it, but I can get there. And so in training for the next things, like, I can come back again. So it's not easy to come back from that kind of stuff, but if you keep going, you really can.
And you mentioned kind of it sounded like you tried to find the joy in running again, and coming back from injuries is hard, but was that key for you to remember what it is that you loved about running regardless of racing?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of been an ongoing struggle in not getting to race LA. I think I was really hoping that I would have a good result that would kind of affirm me and what I'm doing, and not getting that has been, okay, well, why are you doing this and why do you love it? And remembering that outside of racing is, kind of still a daily struggle, but it's days where you go out and you work hard and you can look at what you did and feel proud of yourself that, that keeps me going.
And in the spectrum that you've had from from 2011 and dealing through the injuries, how have you changed the way in which you set goals for yourself?
I think I've kind of had to. I mean, when you're coming off of highs of achieving goals that you never thought. I always said I would die if I made a world team. Like, I really thought that was something I would never ever do. And so it was this amazing experience for me. So coming off of, you know, PRing and highs like that, your goals look a little different. You know, they're more aggressive and you're able to set big goals for yourself. And then coming off of injuries and rough years and not having breakthroughs in a little while, I think it's more important to remember the process goals, you know, the goals that are based less off of how you're racing and more off of what you're doing daily in little ways and in workouts and in your maybe the small races along the way that are kind of checkpoints, you know. So those process goals become way more important. You need to lean on them almost more heavily that show you are doing good things. They're not good things that are maybe as big and visible as you want them to be, but they're good things. So you've really got to rely on those little goals along the way.
You know, and one of the blog posts that you wrote for your Sportswear, you talk specifically about goal setting and the SMART method. And before we get into SMART, I wanted to follow up just a little bit about the outcome versus process goals, which you just started to talk about. And you know, tell us, for those who might not know, explain the difference between them and how important it is to have both of them, really.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have both goals for sure. Outcome goals are the ones that they're based on either a time you want to hit or a place you want to make in a race. Like, you want to win, you want to be top 5, you want to be in the top 50, you want to get a medal. The things that are very outcome oriented, and those goals are a little bit harder for you to control personally. You know, if you go into a race wanting to place 5th or top 5, you can have the best day ever, the best day you possibly could on that day, and be 7th because you can't control who shows up. You can't control that 6 other women are just better than you on that day, even though you raced perfectly. You executed exactly as you possibly could. Could not have gone better, but you can't control that. And so if you only have outcome-oriented goals, you're still devastated on that day because you got 7th, you didn't get top 5, and that was what you set out to do, and you didn't do it. So, oh my golly, you know, that's terrible. But it's really not, because you did everything you possibly could. You ran the best you possibly could. You know, maybe you PR'd or, you know, you didn't, but you know you couldn't have executed anything better. So if you have process goals that are the goals that you set maybe when you're writing your race plan. So as you go into a race, you're thinking about how you want to run it, and you set for yourself that, you know, you want to be you want to set yourself up. So you want to get out in a certain way. You want to get out hard, or you want to be smart and you want to sit back, or you want to attack the middle, or you want to attack all the hills and run up and over them, and you want to negative split. Those sorts of things that you control. You know, nobody else in the race controls if you attack a hill or not. You control if you attack a hill. So you have those goals that you can look back after the race and say, did I attack the hills? Yep, check. Did I get out smart? You know, I got out hard, but it wasn't too hard? Yep, check. Did I work the middle? Yep, check. And so you have these process goals along the way that you were 7th, but you did all those process goals perfectly, and you really did have a great race. So you can sit back and say, okay, I did that really well. And then you can also use them in the big scheme of a season or a training cycle where your end result you want to do is you want to qualify for Boston or something, but you have to do these things along the way. You know, you have to do these training goals, you have to have race goals for how you're going to run, you know, these races along the way, and they're the things that you do along the way to reach the big goal. So instead of getting caught up in just the result, you have little things, and it can even be things like, I want to do core, you know, twice a week. I want to do, 4 runs a week. I want to do a long run every Sunday. And those are things that are contributing to the process of getting to the end result.
That's great. And as we're talking about those process goals and the outcome goals, also, can you take us a little bit through when you wrote about the SMART method and the ways in which different ways in which people can go about setting goals for themselves, and a little bit of what that's about?
Yeah, so the SMART method is like the one thing I remember from a college course, so it does stick sometimes, and it's just remembering when you set your goals. It helps you define them and tweak them so that they're actually going to be helpful. So it's just the acronym SMART, and the S is specific. So you want your goals to be specific. You can't set this, wildly large goal that has no specificity to it, nothing, rather than to say, like, I want to run really well. Well, what does I want to run really well mean? You got to get specific with it. I want to run under this time, or I want to run 4 times a week, or I want to run this far for my long run. I want to work up to it. So be specific. The M is for measurable, so make it something that you can actually look back and see if you accomplished it or not. So just saying I want to run really well, that's not measurable. There's no way to say whether you ran well or not. So that's where making it, the different ways you can measure it would be like a time or a place, which those would be both outcomes. So you could also put some process ones in there too to measure how you've achieved, or if it's losing weight, then putting a number on it, or things like that, rather than just letting it be lose weight. Well, that could be 1 pound, that could be 10 pounds. Make it achievable. So you don't want to set goals that's the A, is achievable. You don't want to make it something that's unattainable, because you're going to get burned out, you're going to get depressed, you're never going to reach it. It's something that's like, I'm never going to be a world record holder. Pretty sure that's true. So I'm not going to make that a goal for myself. A more, attainable goal would be, to make another world team, or to, do other things like that are actually achievable to me. Because if I set out to set a world record, well, it's not going to happen, and I'm going to get really upset, and I'm not going to feel very good about myself in the process. So make it something that you can actually do. And they can, keep getting harder. Achieve one, and then set another one that's achievable, and set another one that's achievable. You'll keep going, but you'll be more positive, and you'll keep going in it if it's achievable from the start. And then also make it relevant. If your end goal is to be a better runner, well, to say like you're gonna shoot 50 free throws every day has no relevancy to running. Like, it's not gonna do anything for you, So set, core goals or drills or speed words. And then the T is timely. So you don't want to make it something like, I want to be a better runner in 10 years. Well, that's not really, there's nothing timely to that. So set a goal that has like an endpoint that's close enough that you can do something in that amount of time, but not so far away that it feels like it's forever, and you'll procrastinate and you'll never get there. So make it in a timely manner that forces you to get going and actually do something about it.
Now, is there, we all struggle with different aspects of goal setting. Is there one area that has been challenging for you and that you found you had to work on a little bit?
I think for me it's usually kind of allowing myself to acknowledge that I've reached goals. I think that's been difficult for me. I tend to be kind of hard on myself, so even when something does go well and I do achieve some goals, it's like I focus on the one goal that I didn't get, So I think that's really important. I think a lot of people do that. It's the like perfectionist in us all, that it's like, well, this was really, really great, but I didn't get this. And it's like, well, everything else was awesome, so chill out and enjoy it,
That's, and so it's, as far as looking at some of those goals, on that flip side of that, to celebrate those ones, when you, on your blog, when you wrote that you couldn't race LA, that you wallowed a little bit. you know, which is an understandable reaction. How important though is it to have those moments where you celebrate those goals, and also when something just kind of stinks, you let it, you feel how much it stinks for a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think it's important to definitely important. So sometimes we're always like, especially as runners, like maybe you set like a time goal for yourself, and you get there, and it's like you're happy for maybe a day, and then it's like, well, if I ran whatever, I can run this much faster, you know. And it's like you never take the time. We're greedy. Just take the time to say like, wow, this is really great, and I feel really awesome about this, and I worked really hard to get here, and just let that be enough. I think that's like, we're always wanting the next thing, you know. It's like, well, if I ran that, I can run this, and if I did that, you know, just be happy in it. And yeah, when something stinks, I think it's definitely okay to acknowledge that it stinks and let it, taking like a couple days to say like, I'm pretty bummed out, and I'm gonna like be upset about it right now, and then in 2 days or a week, I'm done, and I'm putting it in the closet. I'm compartmentalizing it, and yeah, if I think about it or if I talk about it, I can say that I'm bummed by it, but I'm not gonna hold it in my lap every day and think about it, you know. So definitely important to have both things, because I think it's both things are motivating. You know, disappointments are motivating, and reaching your goal is motivating. But you got to acknowledge both things when they happen.
I'm sure that plenty of people ask you for marathon advice, for training advice, and racing advice, and from someone who's elite to someone who, you know, advice that you might give to someone who might be trying to qualify for Boston, or might be trying to run their first marathon. Are there different types of advice that you give to different people, different end goals there?
You know what, with the marathon, I think the biggest thing, the advice that I give to everyone, because it's the advice that has been given to me over and over and over again, the biggest thing is just to go out smart. Like race day, you've done so much work, and so no matter what pace you think you're fit to run, like you can run X time, so that means this pace, that is going to feel easy for the first 5, 7, even 10 miles. Don't run faster than that pace. You will bleed time exponentially out the end just by running a little too fast in the beginning. And one of my friends that I train with a lot, and she has hammered that into my head so many times, because it was hammered into her head so many times, that if you go just a couple seconds a mile too fast early, you'll be so much slower per mile at the end, just because you overdid it, you know. So just relax and let the beginning be almost, it's not a warm-up, because you're racing, and it is hard, but almost like check out your brain for a little while and run slower than you think you need to. I think that's like by far the biggest thing.
and that, right, because especially I think if you have certain goals, outcome goals, that at the beginning you get so, as runners, right, we're perfectionists, we get so hyped up, we have to run this pace at this time the whole time, that it can backfire pretty quickly.
It absolutely can. And that's the thing, is like, because we get so time oriented, it's like, oh, I'm running right now, I'm 5 seconds a mile faster than I thought I would be, and I feel great, so I'm going to keep doing this. And you will get to 20 and be like, what the heck was I thinking? I never, ever, ever should have done that.
And then, you know, for a first-time marathoner, you know, for someone that I mean, I don't know if you can go back and remember your first marathon, but what would you say to someone who's training for you know, her first time, just wants to finish it, doesn't have a time goal, just wants to get through it?
Yeah, I definitely remember my first one, and it was great, and it was really hard, and I remember the end and just feeling like I was never going to make it, and I was dying, and it was horrible, but I also remember the insane feeling of accomplishment of like crossing that line, and I cried, and then I told everybody that I knew that they needed to do a marathon, because it's like so great. So I would say, awesome for you for doing your first one, and you know, people, I feel like, love it or hate it, but I just think this doing it one time is so great. So, and I would just say, you know, let it be a good experience. I think that's huge. It's the same with a 5K. It's the same with a 10K. Anytime you're doing a distance that you haven't done before and you're stepping up to something a little bit longer, I always think, like, let it be a good experience, and run a little bit slower than you think you should, so that by the end you feel like, oh wow, hey, if I did that again, I could run a little bit faster, you know, rather than getting to the end and being like, oh no, I'm never ever gonna get there, and like dying and running way slower. Like, run slower than you think. Let it be something that you enjoy. You know, if you're out running in a cool place, it's your first marathon and you're doing something cool, like, look around you, soak it up. Soak up the band, soak up the scenery, soak up, you know, the people who are around you, and find a friend to run with. Like, let it be fun, and in the training, let it be fun, you know. Find people who will come alongside you and help you in your training and ask advice, and just enjoy your long runs, enjoy your workouts, and don't let it be pressure-filled. Just soak it all up. Like, the whole thing can be really meaningful if you take time to be proud of of each accomplishment along the way. You know, like your longest run, if it's 10 miles before that and you run 12, soak up that accomplishment, and then soak up when you add, you know, 2 miles more to it, and then 2 miles more, and then you get to the marathon day and you run the whole thing. Like, let each thing be a big deal, because it is.
Great. We have a question that came in for you from Twitter. So someone is asking, when you feel mentally weak, which we all do at some points, when you do, how do you pick yourself back up and still follow your goals?
Yeah. I think I go back to, I don't know who told me this or if I learned it in sports psychology, but I go back to chunking. And when I'm weak, if it's a workout or if it's a race or if it's a day, it's like, okay, I'm going to chunk up what I have to accomplish today. So if it's like today I did 400s and it was really windy and I had 24 of them, and so it was like, to chunk it up, it was like each one is its own one, and I'm not thinking about the fact that I have 23 more after the first one. I'm thinking about this particular one and doing this one well. So then once that one's done, the next one, okay, the wind is, you know, on the backstretch, okay, I'm going to work through it and I'm going to accelerate through the turn, and I'm going to, you know, run well through the finish, and that was one. Okay, now get to the next one. That was one. And so if you do that, and if it's a long run, if it's a marathon, if it's a 5K, take it to the next hole, take it to the next turn, take it to the next, like, and you can do that, you know. I can run to the next tree. Okay, I did that. Now what's next? Look up and make it like, I'm going to run with good form to that tree. I'm going to stand tall. I'm going to breathe well. I'm going to not wallow to that tree. And then if you want to wallow when you get to that tree, okay, pick the next thing. And say, I'm not going to wallow till I get to that lamppost. And if you can kind of take your mind off of the fact that you're being mentally weak and give yourself, you know, tricks to be mentally stronger, and not think about the fact that you're being weak, you know, you'll be stronger in the end anyway. So chunking is big.
That sounds fantastic. That sounds like a really good good way to sort of break up something that's really tough.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and so thank you for the question, Twitter. So remember that you can always tweet us #StrongWomen if you have any questions for Alissa. And I read that your first running partner was your mom. Is that correct? The first one?
Yeah, she was. I didn't start running till I was in high school, and I actually started running in middle school. I didn't start running competitively till high school, but I started running because I had back surgery in 8th grade, and I wanted to make the varsity soccer team the next year. And my mom, she used to run, but she had stopped, but she still had this 4-mile loop from our house that she had done when she ran. And so she's like, well, I'll show you, I'll rollerblade with you while you run. I probably won't be able to keep up if I run, so I'll rollerblade. And so she would rollerblade, and I would go out there in the morning before school and just trying to get back in shape. to play soccer, and then when I got too fast for her to keep up on her rollerblades, she switched to a bike, and she would go with me all over the place, and she still does. It's great. If I, you know, sometimes it's just not that much fun to run by yourself, and so I'll be like, Mom, do you want to get on your bike? Or now I ask my aunt or my uncle or my fiance, just like, who wants to ride a bike with me? She spoiled me, so.
That's great, and that also sounds like a very key part of the relationship with your mother too. Was the fact that you spent that time together.
Yeah, it was great to get a lot of time with her, and now with, you know, anybody else, like my fiance or my brother, or, you know, when I want to reconnect with people and I have to go out running, we're at a family gathering, whatever, and will someone just please go with me? I have to miss out on time with everybody else, so maybe you could just come, and it's great. You can get to have good conversations, and they're not working as hard as me, and, you know, they have a good time, and I have a good time.
That's good. And have you found that maybe because you've grown up doing it, that friends, family understand, okay, you know, this has got to go out for a long run today, or sort of the commitment that you have to make to be a runner?
Yeah, I think they really do. They make, you know, exceptions for me, or they understand when I'm going to bed and everybody's still hanging out or getting up early to do whatever. And yeah, my family is so supportive, and that has really made it easiasier and enabled me to keep going this far. Like, I never would have done it for this long if they weren't, you know, as supportive as they are.
That's great. Well, and I know that you're disappointed you didn't get to run LA, but what's next for you? What are you working towards now?
Yeah, so I'm really, really excited. I'm from Indiana originally, and I'm back here now. And there's the Indianapolis Half Marathon, the Indy Mini, not this weekend, but next weekend, May 2nd. And I've never gotten to do it. It's huge. I guess it's the biggest half marathon in the country, which I was not aware of. And it's sort of the thing around here that I think gets people out in the wintertime to train. Like, everybody's like, oh, I'm doing the Indy Mini this year. They'd come into the running store they used to work at and say they needed new shoes for the Mini. And I just never done it. And you get to run on the Indy 500 racetrack, like, for part of it and stuff. So I'm doing that, which would be so much fun. Friends are doing it, and, you know, I never get to do races that my friends are doing because I don't often race around home. So that'll be really great. And then after that, I'm going to do hopefully a 5K end of May, and then Grandma's Marathon, which is in Duluth, Minnesota, June 20th. So trying another marathon. Hopefully I don't get sick this time.
That's great. You know, and what does keep you motivated to keep training and to keep pushing and trying another marathon and to keep going?
I mean, I think at this point it's having been injured for so long, and then coming back and having these setbacks along the way. Now it's almost like just to do it again. Like, the whole reason that I like to run, that I do it for health too, but the reason I'm doing it right now the way I'm doing it is to run well and race well, and I just want to do that again. You know, I'm not ready to be done without running well again. Like, it's a little bit of a drug, you know, that feeling of crossing the finish line and knowing you just did a really great job is an amazing feeling, and I want to feel it again. So that's kind of what keeps me going now. And racing is fun, you know, the race day atmosphere and all the people. And the 5K that I want to do is in Albany, New York, and it's all women. And I love doing those. Like, all women races are so much fun because that's an amazing atmosphere. Just women out there cheering each other on and working hard. And so I just want to experience that again and get to run well in that.
You know, and so speaking of, you know, getting to, you know, all women's races and getting to run with that, as our time here starts to wind down, what are things that words of encouragement that you would give to women that you would want them to know about racing or training, whether it's their first 5K or whether they're trying to Boston qualify?
I think the one thing that I've really learned, and that I knew before being injured, but I hadn't been injured since I was 21. So I had gone from 21 until like 2012 was the first I've been injured, and so it's like 7 years. And so I had, in talking to people who are getting started or coming back from injury, I would say, yeah, like take it easy at the beginning and like, let yourself off the hook, and it'll feel bad for a while, but you'll get through it. And I just had no concept. Like if I were saying those things to myself, then I would probably punch myself in the face, because it's horrible. And starting out, my advice to like people who are just starting out would be so different now, and so much less arrogant. Like, I think I had no idea that it hurts so bad to start running. And last summer I didn't run for 2 months, and that was the longest I hadn't run in years and years and years. And running 20 minutes after that was horrible, and I had still been cross training, and it was bad for months, like 2 solid months probably, where I just felt terrible running even like 40 minutes. And so now I would say to people, like, let yourself off the hook. Like, if it feels bad, okay, it feels bad, slow down until it feels okay, and you can talk to the person next to you. And then, yeah, try and run a little bit faster maybe the next day or the next week, but it's going to feel pretty terrible for a while before you get that runner's high. Like, runner's high, like, let go of it, because it's not going to come for a long time. It's going to feel terrible. So just, like, relax in it and let yourself gradually get into it, and don't feel bad if it feels bad, and then one day, you'll try doing like a little bit quicker of a run, and it'll feel kind of good, and then you can kind of build from there. But don't think it's going to happen right off the bat. I think that's why people don't like to stick with running, is because they think like after a week it should feel good, you should get that runner's high and whatever. But if you've never run before and you're just starting out, it's going to take a bit of time before you maybe like it, Some days I still don't like it.
Right. And I think that's important too, right, is that every training day, every day can't be a feel-good day, right? Some days just really hurt.
And so, yes, and you will, like, once you get into it and you start doing workouts, or, it didn't have to be really that big of a workout. It could be like you want to start doing little pickups in your run, like, you're going to have to make it hurt a little bit. And that's like, that was another thing that I had to relearn after not running for a little while, was that, easy runs are going to feel bad. And then when you try to start running fast, it's hard and it's going to hurt. And you just have to say, okay, today is going to hurt. and then embrace it and say, all right, I'm going to do as best as I can within this hurt. And it'll get better.
We have another question that came in on Twitter that asks if you were focusing solely on marathons, and I know that you mentioned doing a half and a 5K. Is that part of your marathon training for as a focus, or do you just like to mix in different distances no matter what?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely the end goal for this training cycle is the marathon. But after, and that was part of why I'm doing a couple races, is because I just haven't raced a lot, and I just do want to have fun. So getting to do a 5K, I definitely won't PR, but, well, I shouldn't say definitely, like, I probably won't, but it'll just be fun to get out there. So I think sometimes, in marathon training, we just, like, put our head down and don't race and whatever, and for me, I just want to do it a little bit more, so that's why but you can't race a marathon, so that's why I'm doing shorter stuff. And then after that, I want to get a little bit away from marathoning for a little while and do some of the road races in the summer that are big, like Bix, or there's some on the East Coast, and then in the fall do some 5Ks and 10Ks. So just get back to like having fun with it, and you can race a lot more when you're doing shorter distances. So I'd like to be able to do them again.
Right. Yes, you can't. Well, you can't race a marathon well.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, you can do them, just not that well. Yeah.
Another question from Twitter is, what cross training, if any, are you doing right now?
A lot of times when I'm healthy and doing able to do as much mileage as I want to, I don't really cross train much, and I'm the person who, when I get a day off, every 2 or 3 weeks, I take it, and I encourage people, like, when you're training hard and you get a day off, sit on the couch. Like, let yourself actually recover and your body actually come back from doing all that you're doing. So right now I'm not cross training much, but when when I take a break and then come back, like after I do get to do a marathon, I'll just kind of take a little break for 2 weeks, and if I feel like running, I'll run, or if I feel like cross training, I'll cross train. So I'll go to the pool and aqua jog, or elliptical a little bit. I probably prefer like taking a spin class, like when I'm just having fun with it. I think spin classes are so much fun because they go fast and you get cool music, and it's more exciting than just sitting on the bike and going yourself. So, but those are the main ones. Aqua jogging probably more than anything when I'm actually injured. But you can make it fun.
And then you were talking about, you mentioned mileage. Someone wants to know where is your mileage? What's your mileage at?
Right now I'm at I think I ran like 115 last week, 114 maybe. I've gotten up to 130 before, but that was one of the stress fractures that I got, and after not having one for a really long time, and I think I could go back up that high. I just need to be smarter about it. I was kind of on the road too much and not on enough soft surfaces. So for me, I feel like 105 to 115, 120 is kind of like a good sweet spot for me. So it's kind of where I'm at right now.
You mentioned some of the road races that you're interested in doing. Are there any aside from goals that you might have about performance or places you want to go? Are there any bucket list races that you want to do just because you want to experience them?
Well, I was actually just talking the other day to one of my friends who we were on a team together, and we were sort of talking about how it would be fun to someday try an ultra. I think that's kind of something that I want to try in the future. Just, I don't know. It's like the next thing beyond a marathon. Like, what's next? And she really wants to do comrades in South Africa. I think it's a 90K or something like that, so it's like 50-some miles and pretty crazy, and that's like hers, but I was like, I don't know if I necessarily want to do that. She's like, we could do it together, so maybe that one, but I haven't really. Leadville 100 always sounds kind of cool too, but those people are crazy, and I know I just can't jump into it. I'm fully aware, but I think it'd be kind of fun to do one that's just seems so nuts that you could never ever do it.
Right, and most of your running is road races as opposed to trails. Do you run trails at all, or just a little bit?
I like to do them in training, but I have never done a trail race, which I also think would be super fun.
And it's because it's also very different racing too, right?
It is totally different.
It's different, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally different. I love trails. There was a guy on a team that I was on before who he needs to do trail races because he's like a mountain goat. I'm not quite to that point where I can like just abandon all sense of like, oh no, there's a route, and just like fly anyway. But I think if you practice it, you can kind of get there.
And so, any final words that you want to leave your tribe with tonight? Because it's also very different racing too.
I guess just remember why you're doing it. I think that's been kind of something that I've been going back to a lot recently. Is just, and you asked me that too, and it was kind of a good thing to verbalize again. Really look at your motivations and why you're doing it, and then cling to those when it gets hard. And let them push you through rather than just getting stuck in what's happening in the moment. So just kind of set goals for yourself and remember what gets you out the door every day. That's really important.
Great. Well, Alissa, thank you so much for your time and your patience with technical difficulties. Yes. Thank our audience, too, for patience with the technical difficulties. And I know there's a little bit of feedback on my end, so apologies for that. But thank you so much, and good luck, and we'll be following you in your upcoming races, and hopefully we'll get to see you run Grandma's in June?
End of June, yep.
End of June. Okay, great. So that's going to be it for this edition of Women in Power Active. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for your time and your patience with